Hello dear students, you're welcome to lesson 7 and we are discussing mammalian teeth. So we know at least teeth from our primary knowledge that all the mammals have different types of teeth and shapes, and therefore they are called heterodonts. Organisms that have different types of teeth are called heterodonts. And then those ones which have the same type of teeth, the teeth that have same size and shapes, are called the homodonts. So organisms can be classified into two depending on the type and shape of teeth that they have. If the type and the shape of teeth are different, that organism is called a heterodont organism. If the type and the shape are the same, then they are homodonts. So I would like you to give me at least 5 examples of heterodont organisms and 5 examples of the homodont organisms. So anyway, let's get back to the mammalian teeth for now. We know now that mammals are heterodont in nature. So their teeth are embedded on the upper jaw and the lower jaw. And in mammals, the teeth consist of the exposed portion known as the crown and the portion that is fixed, firmly fixed or anchored into the jaw, that is called the root. So we can have the two major parts of the tooth, where we have the crown, which usually appears outside, the one you see usually white in color, that one is the crown. And then we have the one you don't see, which enters into the jaw, is called the root. So the tooth usually have the crown and the jaw. However, there are many other parts that we are going to see that are found in the teeth. So let's look at the different types of teeth. At least from our primary school, we know that there are 4 types of teeth, and indeed there are still 4, and the number is still 4. 4 types of teeth. The first one is the incisors. So wherever you are, you smile, and we want to see the incisor teeth. Well, when you smile, what you see usually are the incisor teeth, and these ones are found at the front part of they are the front teeth in both the upper and the lower jaws in man. When you look at them, their crown is usually chisel shaped, and therefore it is sharp and flat. It has a sharp and flat edge, and they have only usually one root, and their major function is for cutting food. So when you are eating, the teeth that you use for cutting food are the incisor teeth. Why? Because they have a sharp and a chisel-shaped crown. So as you can see them there, you realize that the incisor tooth is sharp and chisel-shaped and contains the crown and the root. So you can see from there clearly the shape of the incisor tooth. Does your tooth look like that? You can see from the mirror and see whether the crown looks like that. Most probably yes. So when you expose them more, when you do more analysis, you look at it on this, the front view looks like that, and then we have the side view looking like quite constricted in that way. Then the second type of teeth is the canines. So these ones are found next to the incisors, and they are normally long and pointed. They are poorly developed in herbivores. Those are organisms that feed on the vegetation, leaves and grass, like the cows, the goats, and so on. Usually they don't have the canines. But in carnivores, those that feed on flesh, like the dogs, the cats, the leopards, the lions, their canines are well developed and prominent. They are very long. The snakes, you've seen how long the canines are. They are used for usually holding and piercing the prey or the food that they feed on. So when you look at the canines, you realize that In some organisms, the canines are poorly developed. For example, the herbivores, those that feed on the vegetation, the plant matter. And then in the carnivores, their canines are well developed. For example, those that feed on the flesh and meat, they have well developed canines, usually for tearing the food and piercing and holding. You have seen the leopards or the lions carrying the antelopes from one place to another, holding it by the mouth. So they use the canines for holding. Therefore, those canines must be very sharp and strong. And then they have a conical shape. Of course, when you look at them critically, realize their shape is conical. Their crown is conical, which is sharp and pointed. And usually they have one root. And their major function is for tearing flesh. The major function of the canine is for tearing the flesh. So you can look at them there. The distinguishing features, you can see the crown, you can see the neck. The neck is that part between the crown and the root. And you can see they have a single root, just like the incisors. And then they are somehow larger than the incisors in size. And then their major function is tearing the flesh. And then we have the premolars. These lie behind the canines in both jaws. So usually on the upper jaw and the lower jaw, they are behind the canines. We are following the order of arrangement from the incisors in front, then those that are next to the incisors are the canines, and then those that are next to the canines are the premolars. And usually found on upper and the lower jaw, and they have a flat, broad surface, which are used for grinding food. Premolars possess 2 or more cusps and ridges and have 2 roots. Premolars are used for grinding and chewing food. So usually these ones are larger in size, and their major function is for chewing. They are larger and flatter, and they have ridges and cusps, which are usually used for chewing and grinding of the food. And then we have the molars. Usually molars are not in young mammals. For example, young children, they don't have the molars. But when you look at them critically, when they develop them, you realize the molars have wider crowns with more ridges and cusps compared to the premolars. We had said that premolars also have ridges and cusps, where the food can easily, to increase surface area for chewing of the food. But molars have even more ridges and more cusps. And they have more roots. Usually they have 3 or more roots. And their major function is chewing and grinding of the food. So molars are specialized for chewing and grinding. But we said they are absent usually in young mammals. So young mammals use premolars for that purpose, as they wait for their molars to develop. So some key points to note. Did you know that the tusks of the elephants are actually incisors? Those tusks of the elephants that you see, the long ones, the 2, are actually the upper incisors. Yes. But of course, elephants do not need incisors because they use the trunk. You remember the elephants have the trunk, which is used for collecting the vegetation, the leaves and the grass they use for chewing. After collecting, they push it into the mouth direct to the molars for chewing. So therefore, the incisors, which would be there for cutting the vegetation, are therefore rendered unnecessary at that time. So they are well developed into tusks, which are now used for defense. Those tusks are used for defense. And then we have the carnivores have a special teeth called the carnassial teeth, which are adapted for cracking bones and scraping or removing the meat from the bones. So you know the carnassial teeth. These canine teeth are used usually for cracking. You've seen the leopards, the dogs, they can easily crack the bone. So which teeth do they use? They use the teeth that we call the canine teeth. So here we have our diagrams. Like you can see that longitudinal section of the premolar tooth. So you can identify some of the parts that we know there. We have the enamel, the outside most part is called the enamel, usually that white part of the teeth. Then just inside there, after the enamel, we have the dentine, and then the dentine is much more fibrous and hardened. Then we have the nerve endings, which are found in the pulp cavity. The pulp cavity is that living part of the tooth. Then we have the cement, which usually is used for holding the tooth firm onto the jawbone. And then we have the blood capillaries there, which we know are used for supplying and draining the tooth. Similarly, we have the mammalian tooth there, which happens to be the canine, and you can see the parts, the same arrangement, except the shape is different. The outside part is the enamel. It's also important to note that the enamel is the strongest substance in the mammalian body. It is stronger than the bone. Then we have the dentine below the enamel, and then we have the pulp cavity where we find the nerve endings and the blood capillaries. The blood capillaries and the nerve endings are usually found in the pulp cavity. Then we have the cement, the gum, and the jawbone. We are going to see the functions of each of those parts. So when you compare the two internal structures of the tooth, of the teeth, where we have the molar and then the incisor, you can see the arrangement and the location of the parts quite clearly there. So let's look at those parts and we see the functions of each of them. The crown, where we said is a general name to mean the part of the tooth that we see outside. So the crown, this one usually is used for breaking food into small particles during the chewing or grinding or cutting. Then we have the enamel. This strengthens the tooth to enable it to grind and cut. It protects the dentine and the pulp cavity. It is the hardest material in the body, and we had said that earlier, that the enamel is the hardest material in the mammalian body. It is usually white in color and made up of calcium phosphate salts. So that's why they tell you usually it's good to eat food rich in calcium so as to strengthen our bones and the teeth. And then we have the root, the part called the root. Like in plants, also in teeth, the roots are used to fix the teeth into the jaws, to firmly fix, such that even if we remove the jaw and cut it out and remove all the flesh, you realize that the teeth are still fixed into the jaws, into the jawbone by the roots. Then we have the dentine. This strengthens the teeth. It makes the teeth stronger. They have a fibrous network of material that makes the teeth stronger. Then we have the pulp cavity. This contains nerves that provide sensitivity to the teeth, and then blood vessels that transport food and oxygen to the tooth. Remember that the teeth keep on growing. Your teeth grow. They increase in size. They also increase in width. So therefore they need materials to enable that growth. So the capillaries are responsible for that purpose, to supply the teeth with necessary material for growth and development. And then we have the gum. This is a fibrous material which fixes or anchors the teeth firmly into the jaw. It's also called the gingiva. So sometimes the gum is called the gingiva, and is a strong material, very fibrous, that keeps the tooth firm onto the jawbone. Then we have a part called the cement. This is a thin layer usually of a bone-like material that fixes the tooth into the jawbone. So this one is slightly closer to the jawbone than the gum. So members, let's move to some part of the study of teeth that we call dentition. So when you hear the word dentition, what does it mean? So generally, dentition means the number, the arrangement, and the shape of teeth in an animal. So it is a generalized term which is used to mean the number, the arrangement, and the shape of the teeth. So we generally call that as dentition. Well, so in mammals, two sets of teeth occur in one's lifetime. That is to say, the milk teeth and the permanent teeth. And I know by now you must have lost all your milk teeth, or at least you are about to lose all of them, and then they will be replaced by another set of very strong, powerful, and very beautiful permanent teeth. The first set, of course, is called the milk teeth, and this one usually lasts up to about 7 years to 11 years. That's when we expect to have milk teeth. Then beyond that, you would expect to have the permanent teeth. The milk teeth are about 20 in number, and they are replaced by the permanent teeth. Then you will have a total of 32 teeth. An adult man has 32 teeth. So we have another term called dental formula. So this is a formula indicating the number of each type of teeth in half the upper jaw and half the lower jaw. So the dental formula gives evidence that the dentition of an animal is closely related to its diet. The number of teeth in the upper jaw is written above that in the lower jaw. The different types of teeth are represented by their letters. That is to say, I for incisors, C for canines, M for premolars, and M for molars, and PM for premolars. So I want to ask you, before I give you my dental formula or formulae, I want you to try to write the dental formulae for the following organisms. I have given you the number of teeth, the total number for each one of them. So you have a task to write a dental formula for each one of them. Man, dog, rat, and a cow. So I want you to write this dental formula and then you send me in my inbox. I would like to see, and then we shall do corrections together. So having looked at the teeth, dentition, types of teeth, dental formula, let's look at how we can care for the teeth in man. But before we look at that in detail, we are going to look at some of the infections that can disturb our teeth. So although the teeth is hard, they are also delicate and need proper care if their life is to be sustained. Common problems that may arise if the teeth are not cared for include the following. We have one called tooth decay or dental caries. This is the most common one. This is caused by lodging, that is when the food gets stuck, especially sugary food between the teeth. This food is then attacked by the microorganisms like bacteria, which ferment this food, producing an acid which reacts chemically with the enamel and removes calcium from it, making it soft. So during chewing, the soft part of the enamel begins wearing away, forming a hole which gets larger and larger. As more food gets stuck, and now bigger hole, and fermentation process continues. Toothache commences into the dentine and the pulp cavity with the nerves, and blood vessels get infected, and a lot of pain will be felt. So this definitely, if you have suffered from toothache, it is a whole process. It just doesn't start from toothache. It starts from the sticking of the food in between your mouth, in between your teeth. So when the food sticks in between the teeth, bacteria will enter there and begin feeding on that food. As they feed on that food, they release acid. That acid will begin wearing out the calcium, reacting with the calcium in the enamel, weakening it and wearing it out. And as you continue chewing with that food, that teeth, the teeth will break off slowly, and in the long run it creates a small hole that bacteria will continue to attack until they invade into the pulp cavity where we have blood vessels and nerves, and by then that's when you'll begin feeling the pain. So it's a long process, but the simple, you have to brush every after a meal. Then we have periodontal disease. These ones are usually many, so we call them periodontal diseases. The pyorrhea and gingivitis. These are diseases which make the gum soft and flabby so that they do not support the teeth well. Sometimes these diseases may lead to bleeding of the gum and passing out of pus, and this include the pyorrhea disease and gingivitis. They are characterized by reddening of the gums, bleeding, and presence of pus in the gums. So this is even more serious. All your teeth will become weak. The whole gum becomes weak, and the teeth begin shaking, and even sometimes developing into pus in the gum. So how do we prevent tooth decay or dental decay? So therefore, if you to prevent dental decay, then you must care well for your teeth. And these are some of the ways in which you can ensure that your teeth are always healthy. The first one is you visit the dentist regularly for checkup. Yes, at least once in a time. Even if your teeth are good and looking healthy and normal, at least you visit a dentist just to check whether anything might be developing. And when you begin feeling any pain or any sensitivity within the teeth, it's a sign that something is happening. Then you must visit the dentist immediately. Proper cleaning of the teeth. And the best way of cleaning the teeth is by brushing, and especially every after meal. And then avoid the sweet, sugary foods like sweets, which encourage bacterial growth. You eating sweet, others lick sugar, others eat cakes, and so on, and then you do not brush. So you avoid eating such foods, especially sugary food. Avoid opening bottles using teeth. Some people open bottles, Coca-Cola, using your tooth, the bottle tops, as if the teeth are the openers. So there you are risking your teeth. In fact, they start wearing and bacteria can easily invade that worn out part. Avoid eating very hot and very cold foods, especially at a go, since they result in two alternate expansion and contraction, since it leads to cracking and creeping of the enamel. So if you are eating hot food, after eating hot food you are taking very cold drink, you are alternating cold and hot at the same time, you realize that the teeth will expand and contract, and therefore the enamel can easily break or crack. Eating foods rich in calcium, phosphates, vitamins A, D, and C is very key and very recommendable for your teeth to grow. Calcium and phosphates are building blocks for teeth and bones. Then vitamin A, D, and C are equally very vital for development of the collagen, which is a key in the gum and the cement. And then exercising your teeth by eating hard fibrous foods like sugar canes, carrots, etc. This stimulates the flow of saliva, which neutralizes acids from bacterial fermentation. So you remember earlier on that tooth decay is caused by acids generated by bacteria. So, but saliva is usually alkaline and can neutralize those acids. So how do you stimulate bacteria? Usually, stimulate salivary release by chewing hard foods, hard material like carrots and so on. You can eat raw carrots. You are stimulating saliva to be secreted, and which washes away the acids. Similarly, sugarcane is equally good, and also good for strengthening the teeth. As you chew, you are hardening your gums and keeping your teeth much more firm. So let's proceed to carnivorous dentition. A carnivore, of course, is an animal that feeds on flesh. We're talking about dogs, cats, lions, and etc. These ones are adapted for feeding on other animals. Therefore, their teeth are adapted for capturing and killing other animals, tearing their flesh, and so on. Their incisors are chisel-shaped and enable them to grip and strip off pieces of flesh from the bones. Their canines are long, like you can see those ones of the dog. They are curved and pointed and used for piercing the prey and preventing it from escaping. Usually when the cat catches a rat, the chances of the rat escaping are very few because of the sharp canines. The upper fourth premolar and the first lower molar are large and powerful. They are called the carnation teeth. They overlap like blades of scissors and are used for tearing and slicing the flesh. The other premolars and molars have jagged edges that fit perfectly together, making them ideal for cracking the bones. So the carnivorous dentition generally is well adapted, very sharp canines for tearing the flesh, carnation teeth which are harder and chisel-shaped for cracking bones and so on. These all are adaptations of the carnivorous animals to their mode of feeding. And you can see there the arrangement of the teeth. You can see the sharp canines. You can also see the carnation teeth there, and a very powerful jaws are used for biting and chewing. Yes, so that is how the skeleton form or part of the head, showing the dentition of the carnivora, and that one particularly is the dog. That's how it looks like. Then we have the herbivora. Herbivores are organisms or animals particularly that feed on plant material. So when they feed on plant material, meaning they have a special dentition that enables them to feed on this plant material. So the herbivorous animals, e.g. the cows, the goats, elephants, antelopes, and so on, eat plant food such as grass, leaves, and small stems. Their teeth are adapted for crushing and grinding vegetables. Their incisors and canines are chisel-shaped, although most of them do not have the canines. Yeah, the upper jaw and of the incisors and canines are replaced by the thick horny part. Grass and other vegetation are gripped between the incisors and the canines on the lower jaw and the horny pad. Between the front teeth and the cheek teeth is a large gap called the diastema. It provides space for the tongue to manipulate vegetation in such a way that the material being chewed is kept away from that is freshly gathered. So when you look at them, you realize they do not have well-developed canines. In fact, some of them do not have canines completely, to give gap for what we call the diastema, the gap where there is no teeth. It's called the diastema, to enable movement of the tongue to collect the vegetation, and also to separate the vegetation which is being the plant material being chewed from that one that is freshly entered into the mouth. So the diastema is very key, and usually their tongues are longer and flexible. So you can see there clearly that they only have the lower incisors. As you can see, they do not have canines, but they have a diastema in between there, between the premolars and the incisors. And also the upper jaw does not have the incisors, but that part there is called a horny pad. It is very hard, and it's where the plant vegetation, plant matter rests on as it is being cut by the incisors. And then we have powerful muscles that are used for chewing, and very widely shaped and well adapted molars and premolars for chewing. So that is the dentition of the sheep, which is an example of the herbivores, organisms that feed on plant material. So I want to continue cautioning you to please obey all the guidelines that are set to prevent us from getting COVID-19. Wherever you are, please obey them. Wash your hands, sanitize whenever possible, and keep social distancing, especially when you're in public, so that you can be safe. Otherwise, I want to thank you very much and wish you the best.